It's wild to me because it's based off of Afro Samurai and Samurai Champloo. Growing up, I came to that first, and it's wild to me that some readers come to my book first and then go back.
Welcome to the show. I'm JasonShannon, author of the books The Zimmer Insurgency, The Hounds of Harajan, and Tiger Blues. This is a podcast about indie writing, featuring excerpts, sample chapters, short stories, upcoming news, and interviews with a variety of other indie authors. Tatiana O.B. is a Locus Award-nominated author who writes badass characters slaying dragons. She enjoys combining action with character-driven stories that feature diverse heroes and heroines. Her debut novel, Bones to the Wind, won the 2022 BBA Award. Today we are discussing her most well-known book, Sistah Samurai, a Champloo novella, which won a 2023 Indie Ink Award. In addition, she's also published short stories in various anthologies, including FIYAH, Literary Magazine, and Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy 2025, and was a contributing editor to Magic in the Melanin, a black fantasy anthology. Sistah Samurai is a fusion genre mashup featuring a black samurai in a fantasy Japan, defending the realm from demons as she goes about her daily life. As Tatiana explains, this was inspired by Champloo animes like Afro Samurai and Samurai Champloo, a genre, admittedly, I'd never heard of before coming across her work. Sistah Samurai has just recently come out in audiobook, which is how I read it. She studied abroad in Japan and is deeply enmeshed in the culture there, something we discussed towards the end of the episode, alongside her year spent teaching English in South Korea. And, to explain the title of the episode, because it doesn't come up directly in our discussion, fuck around and find out, are the names of the samurais Katana and Wakizashi, which beautifully adds to the character and the tone of the story. I give you Tatiana O.B. So you've really nailed a strong voice in this one. I know this wasn't your first book, but you've really come out of the gate swinging here with not just the character, but your voice as an author. Like, you are really just bold and you don't hold back, which I think is a tendency that some authors like to have, but you've just perfectly mastered it.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny because it takes a while definitely to find your authorial voice. And I've been writing for a long time, but when you're like in your cave and you're like just by yourself and with yourself and you're just kind of like entertaining yourself, right? You don't really think about those things. And then you publish the book and you're like, yes. I do have a strong voice. I have lots of things to say. I just I but I feel like sometimes I'm also an author that like enjoys making like and challenging the reader, making them feel uncomfortable, like just giving them stories that kind of make people think and to think of different perspectives.
Yeah, the first few things I tried to write, I like to think the stories were good and the plotting and pacing and everything was good, but the voice wasn't there. Read probably like a textbook. And it took me until the first thing I published, thankfully, where I really kind of began to get the beginnings of voice. And it is a skill that authors really need to develop for themselves.
Yeah, and it definitely takes time and it takes comfort because I know the voice for my novella is very different than my debut duology, which is more big, more epic fantasy. That does have a distinct voice to it. But that was such a big book. And after I was finished with that and I started the novella, I was like, I want to do something fun. I want to do something different. Let's experiment. So I would say like Sister Samurai's turned up to 100.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that as well, because you did start with this larger duology that was, much more epic in scale. But this one is kind of very short, to the point. It's novella length. I've found that working with something longer versus working with something shorter, you sometimes have different freedoms in different areas, and you can say more or less with different lengths. Are you finding the same thing?
No, I definitely agree. So for example, I feel like you can play and experiment with form a little bit more in shorter works because readers don't have to deal with it for a very long time. So one particular thing in Sister Samurai that I did very intentionally was kind of hide, the full motivation of the character until the very end. And that's not something I would have ever done in a longer work. Because a lot of readers, like to follow a character for so long, they need to know why the character's doing this. They need to know why the character is going towards their goal. But because this was shorter, I wanted to kind of experiment a little bit more with the structure. You see that a lot in more like shorter form novellas. You see a lot of experimentation. And I think one of the reasons is because of that shorter length. Readers aren't buying in for 100 if they're like, oh, this is very weird. What is happening? Um, but I really kind of enjoy that freedom. But I also enjoy the kind of the pacing and the structure of very longer works too. They definitely do have different pros and cons with them. And I think each like different lengths definitely is a skill. Like,
For sure, yeah. I was never that good at writing shorter fiction, which it's a skill that you wouldn't think is difficult to obtain once you're doing longer stuff, but it actually is.
yeah.
And it was, I think it was 2022 is when I really tried to perfect by just writing short stories, and then it went to novelettes, and there's a few novellas in there as well. And yeah, you can play around with the structure a lot. You have a lot of freedom to mess around with things because the audience is going to be much more forgiving because it's only 5,000 words or it's only
Exactly.
15,000 words. And if they will put up with it because there's less for them to get tired of, if
Yes.
that
Yeah.
sounds right.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just wanted to highlight one little thing here. There's one I'm gonna butcher the quote here, but it's something like you're talking about the demons rumored to have come through from other worlds, and your character says something like, I wish all these other worlds would deal with their shit so I don't have to. Which is, again, goes to your voice in that I don't even think this is dialogue. That was just kind of the narration for this character. And I think we've all had days like that, but it so perfectly sums up what she's having to deal with.
Yes, yeah. Sister Samurai, it is a novella length. It is about a retired Sister Samurai. She's kind of out running errands, and it's a day in the life, right? And it is just one of those days for her where everything is going wrong, and she's just not having it, and she's not putting up with it. It's a very um Odyssey type of plot, right? But I wanted to bring that plot and I wanted to bring it here, especially in the perspective of having such a Black woman at the center of the narrative and how having this character changed the perspective of this type of story.
Yeah, and the day in the life structure, that's another thing you can kind of play around with a lot more easily in the shorter format because she is just out doing her normal thing and then all these things start happening to her as she's sort of out of the house doing her thing, which you have much more power to work with that if it's just a shorter work. And this is also written first person. I haven't read your duology yet. I don't know if that's first or third person as well. Do you have a preference, or did you have to like plot out when you began planning this? This is going to be first person, or do you have to debate that?
So my duology is in third person, and I do admit that I am more comfortable in third person. Like when I say that this novella was a fun experiment, it was a fun experiment. I actually wrote the first draft of this novella in third person, and I was like, this isn't right. Like this isn't it. Because I feel like you do get to a point where you have written enough that you realize, okay, this isn't the right form. This isn't working the way that it is. And once I switched over to first person, I was like, ah, yeah, this is it. I'm definitely a discovery writer, so sometimes I gotta write myself into it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this would work as well in third person.
No.
And the fact that you prefer third person, that's interesting because I love writing first person. You can't always
Yeah.
do it because the narrative is kind of stuck to whatever character you put it with. And if they leave the room, whatever is happening behind them has to leave the room with them.
I just think that's just my, I guess, history of a reader, right? Like I grew up on epic fantasy, epic fantasy, and that typically is limited third person point of view. So because that's what I like to read, that's what I'm more comfortable with. But I like to challenge myself.
And I think challenging yourself as a writer is definitely something the writers should be doing. I've said this before, but some writers, just wind up writing the same book again and again, which is perfectly fine. That's if you have a winning formula and you like writing it, readers are going to keep coming back to read it. But I like to always challenge myself and try something new in every book, and I like when
Yeah.
writers take that, swing for the fences as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I get bored so easily. Like even just my personal life, I don't like watching things twice. I don't like reading retellings because it's like I already know what's gonna happen. I know what's I already know. I like that journey. I like being surprised. I like reading something new and always consuming new things. So I can't even imagine like writing the same thing.
Yeah, same, totally. Now I was telling you off mic that you're actually a we don't really travel in the same circles, so I discovered you kind of by accident. I don't remember exactly how, but you're doing something right by marketing or networking or doing something because I saw your book come up, and I have to admit this whole like Champloo subgenre, I never heard of that. I know that you kind of base it around Afro Samurai and a few others in that world. I'm not really much of an anime guy, so I probably missed it, but I saw that and I just had to like find out more about it. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you, number one, for introducing me to that. I did go back and check out a few of the Afro Samurai, the earlier episodes. I haven't finished the
Oh,
whole season yet.
that's awesome. That makes me happy when like people were like, I read it and then I went and go watch the animes. I was like, yes. But it's wild to me because it's based off of Afro Samurai and Samurai Champloo, those two animes specifically. And like growing up, I came to that first, and it's wild to me that some readers come to my book first and then go back. And it's just like, oh, it makes me happy.
Well, that's another thing too. Sometimes you are more familiar with a topic or a genre or a world that you're working in, and you're worried about how much do I pay homage to this? How much do I wink and nod here? How much do I over explain this? Because readers might already be familiar with it, but readers might not be familiar with it as well.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, like, working in this sort of niche subgenre, which I don't know how niche it is, it's just something I'd never heard of. What has the response been from your readers, or just when you're out marketing it and you have to kind of explain what it is? The title does a lot of the heavy lifting there, but
Yeah.
explaining to people who might not have heard of this before, where do you start there?
Um, it's very interesting because I don't think I was really aware of more general readers picking this up until I did a beta reader call for the book. And so I sent it out to beta readers, and it was at that time I realized that, oh, wait, there are going to be people who know nothing about anime who are interested in this book. And one of the reasons why they're interested in the book, they're like, oh, we just saw a black woman with a sword. It still looked interesting. I just want to read it. I was like, oh, okay. Um, and that kind of made me more aware that this book would have more of a double audience. People who come to it because they love anime, people who come to it because they love East Asian culture or Japanese culture, people who come to it because they just want to read a Black main character or they want to read an action book. There's a lot of different ways that people come to it. And so I did try to make the book more accessible. I was careful with like the beta readers. If a lot of beta readers, if they noted something and it was confusing to them, then I did eliminate that like in joke or Easter egg. But the things that like went sell past them and the anime readers enjoyed, they kind of like those small hits. So you have to like figure out how to balance both audiences, right? Like how you can make sure that all of these in jokes and all these Easter eggs doesn't take away from the people who don't understand, don't recognize them as they read the story, but also how you can still maintain it and make it special for the people who do recognize these things. Um, and even further, this is a fusion. This is a fusion book. And I would argue fusions aren't very easy to write because in order for a fusion to really work, you need to have good knowledge of both sides of it, right? Like of both sides of what you're fusing together. Um, and but that goes for the readers too. While it has more broader appeal because people might recognize one both or sides of a fusion. At the same time, for the people who really get it and really understand what's going on, that target audience is really small, right? Like you have to know Black culture, you have to know Japanese culture, how all these things are working together to really understand what the book is doing. So while it has mass appeal, like the people who get it are like very small, who like get all of the references, right? Um, so it's trying to juggle and trying to balance that was interesting once I got the beta reader feedback, and I was like, okay, all right, I need to um adjust and be more conscious of like how people are going to receive it.
Yeah, what you're describing there with the very, very core audience that's going to get everything and, tease apart everything with like these 45-minute YouTube videos that go into like where you place the comma in that sentence. That's the audience you really want to write for. You really have to be
Right.
careful writing for, but
Yeah,
they're going to be maybe 5 or 10 people. And everyone
exactly.
else, they're going to pay your bills, and you have to balance both of them.
Yes.
And yeah, it's always a balancing act to get that right, because you don't want to dumb it down for the people who really want it, but you also don't want to make it so dense and so like niche that the general audience is not going to get it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. One of the, for example, another thing that I did to kind of make it a little bit more accessible is, um, I took Japanese in college, and it's been a while since then, since I had brushed up on it, but I did for this book. But by the time I wrote it, I realized, oh, there's a lot of Japanese words in here. So I actually detranslated a lot of the words. But I found that some of the words that could not really be, translated to English were a lot of the clothing. And so one of the compromises I made is there's a visual glossary in front of the book. So a lot of readers who know nothing about Japanese can have a visual language of what she's wearing and like some of the items in the book, because there are several words that like can't be translated.
Yeah, when it comes to foreign languages, that's something that I struggle with as well, because I don't speak any foreign languages with any sort of fluency, but I've looked into a few things, and you get deep enough into these cultures, you just pick up certain words, and it's like, do I want to be true to the people who are going to understand these words and not say katana sword and just say katana,
Yeah.
versus as a very cheap example, but or do I just say her sword or something like it's again, it's a balancing act, and I don't fully know where to come down on those different sides of the coin there. One thing I'm doing in my current writing now is I kind of write it. I'm generally non-expositional to begin with, so I don't like over explaining a lot of things that don't need explaining. I'm dialing that back a little bit, but I also just put a glossary at the end of things to over define every word. If people are lost, they can go there.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned that you have a visual glossary. Did you put any other like a word glossary in this, appendix on the sort of the history? You've got an extensive sort of history of this world that you've built up, maps and whatnot. Did you debate putting any of that stuff in there?
I decided not to, just because of the beta reader feedback. The biggest issue was the clothing and the items, and I thought this would be a nice little touchstone. But they didn't really have issues with most of the words, because a lot of the words you can understand through context. You can understand, oh, I don't know what food that is, but that's food. Like I don't. So there are now, if there was something that changed their understanding of the story and was necessary, then I probably detranslated that. And I think I had about like 20 to 25 beta readers. So I had like a pretty good sizable amount of people who knew anime, people who didn't know anime. And so yeah, beta readers are very helpful, guys, to kind of like adjust your writing for your audience. But for this book, there is no appendix. For my duology, I actually went like very that was one of the challenges I set myself for my duology is, can I create this brand new culture, this brand new world, and have people understand everything by the end of it? So that has no dictionary. But like sometimes it's very intentional decisions.
Yeah, I want to ask you about just how you approach world building because, as I mentioned, you've got this like a very elaborate history that your main character keeps referencing again and again. This battle for the capital and this and that, and as again, it's all done brilliantly through context. But you've got that, you've got sort of cities that she's talking about, and again, no map. So at least in the audiobook, I was going only off the audio and different levels of technology. So I'm not even sure when in history this is meant to take place. Like there's a talk of like the one of them is wearing a Walkman at one point. There's sunglasses, and meanwhile they're still in OBs and what have you. So like, how do you approach world building to develop all this stuff? Did it come naturally to you that you know it's going to be set in this general sort of atmosphere, or did you have to like market that all out or with like a
Yeah.
string on a board or type of thing?
So I knew people would have issues with this book, right? Like, um, it is a very Japanese background, but as you said, it has like a Walkman and different technology inserted into it. Um, and one of the things that this anime, like this book, is inspired by Afro Samurai Samurai Champloo. And one of the things that kind of is highlighted within those two properties is they're very anachronistic. So Samurai Champloo, very anachronistic. And then if you notice like the background, the scenery of Afro Samurai, also not historically correct whatsoever. Um, and one of the reasons why this works in this particular genre and this particular fusion genre, for example, like there is hip hop elements in Samurai Champloo. And the reason why it works is because, readers ask, oh, wait, like there's a black person here in Japan. That makes no sense. That's not historically accurate. But the author can be like, well, it has machine guns in it too. It has, beatboxing samurai in it. Like there's all these other anachronisms that it becomes more wilder than the presence of black people in Japan. And so I took that same concept, and brought it into Sister Samurai. So I wanted a world where there are these anachronisms, but knowing my epic fantasy fans and coming from that area, I knew that book readers would have more of an issue with it in compared to like anime people. Because, anachronisms in epic fantasy is not very common. It breaks the brain. So for this world, I wanted to give a logical reason to why they existed. And one of the reasons why they existed is when demons come into this world from different universes, they also sometimes drop items behind them. And so these items have impacted the way that this world has formed, right? Like they drop all these like different technological items, and sometimes people are also pulled from universes and pulled into universes as are expanded in the other books. So you do have people out of time in this world as well. So all of these different elements you come and just I intentionally did to add to this fusion feel of the story.
Yeah, I was reading this afternoon, and there was a line you had in there about demons being pulled in from other worlds, and sometimes other people come with them, and they talk, or they get sucked into these other worlds, and they come back talking about metal planes that people fly on, or metal birds, I think you said people fly on, and a few other things like that. And like, oh, I know exactly what you're doing there. Like that's brilliant how you've done that, and you didn't like dwell on it too much to over explain it. So it's just this little wink and a nod to kind of offer a little bit of an explanation.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of subtle like winks and things throughout if, people are paying attention.
The action scenes are brilliantly written in this. There's a lot of there's number one, there's a lot more than just one action scene here. And when authors have to write more, especially if sword fights, they tend to just either repeat themselves or they just cut short the latter ones to be like, and we're doing this again and wrap it up. You've managed to keep it fresh and do these like fresh action scenes the entire time. Was that easy for you to do, or was that like how many drafts did you have to go through to get the action pacing right here?
So I love action. I definitely grew up on action movies, and and you can see definitely that pace of action movies in the novel. Like some of my favorite things are like John Wick and On Bak and like Ip Man, right? Like love love the kung fu action movies. So kind of growing up with that. Then also I really love shonen anime particularly, which is also very action oriented. So growing up with that, like sometimes I would just have fight scenes that play in my head. Like I'm like, like it comes pretty easily to me. I'm always shocked at myself that I have not written a fight scene that's similar to something else yet. I'm like, I'm still antsy about that day. Like, what if I don't have any any ideas? But so far that hasn't been a problem. And there are particular, like techniques and methods you can kind of go into it to make things feel more unique and make things feel fresh. So for example, with Sister Samurai, one of the things that I did is I wanted to make sure that every single fight scene illuminated or taught something different about the magic system. Um, Either you see like, oh, this is what happens when the talisman gets wet, or this is what happens when you have two different people using the same talisman, but willpower makes a difference. So you see the magic system. I show you that magic system being performed in different ways. So by the time we get to the climax, I don't have to explain anything, and then we're just 100% into it. So it's definitely an intentional building up throughout the fight scenes.
Yeah, it's paced very nicely where like the climactic battle scene is definitely grander in scale than the smaller stuff that comes before it. Are you the
Yeah.
sort of author who kind of views your writing as a movie playing in your head?
Um, a little bit. It depends. The fight scenes play in my head. But I also, like way back when I first started, I know that I'm not naturally good at like background details. I learned this writing fan fiction in college. Um, and so knowing that that's a weakness of mine, I dedicate a draft to just writing the background, just writing the details, like what's in this room, like what's around her, what's the sensory information. Like I dedicate a draft just to that. And now a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're very good at it." I'm like, "Ha ha 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 ha, you don't know." But that's just the journey of being a writer and like understanding your strengths and weaknesses and how you can kind of bolster that.
Yeah, and action scenes in particular, you don't want to go into a lot of sort of overwrought detail on the scenery or anything like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Or it reminds me of the kind of like the Jackie Chan method, when in a Jackie Chan movie, like you go into a scene and the scene kind of specifically shows you like all of the items and all of the environment. And then throughout the fight scene, Jackie Chan uses all those items and all that environment. So it's like that small trick of making sure your reader understands the background so that once the fighting and the action happens, you don't have to explain that in scene, which slows down action.
For sure. I even find that in an action scene that I'm writing, my sentences will get shorter.
Yes,
And
yeah.
this is a maybe a bad habit of mine because I'm now repeating myself multiple times. But if it's a really like intense action scene, I'll actually cut the sentences off with like an M dash and jump to a new paragraph because I'm allowing the reader to kind of fill in their mind like what is happening at the end of the sentence, and it's also the person involved in the scene is not necessarily going to be narrating everything that's going on anyway. So there's going to be snippets of sentences that come up here or there, but I'm starting to like redo that too many times. I need to come up with a new way of doing it.
Yes, yes. But like definitely playing with sentence structure is very effective.
So this is this is beginning a series. There's already a second, The Return of Sister Samurai coming out. That's out
Yes.
now, I should say.
Yeah.
Was that always intended to be, beginning a series, or was it meant to be a standalone?
I first started writing to Samurai as a standalone. Um, I had not planned on writing more, even when the book released and people were like, "Are you writing more?" Um, and then one day in the shower, you get out these ideas in the shower. The title for the fourth book popped in my head, and I was like, "Oh, only Sister Samurai, only the series can pull off this title. I gotta write to the fourth book." Um, and so I expanded from there. Expanded, well, how can I get there? And so for the first book, it's very spring inspired. And so the second book is very summer focused. The third book is fall. And the fourth book is winter. And I was also inspired by the time that I studied abroad in Japan. Being from Texas, we don't have very distinct seasons. It's just freeze or it's just ice or hot. Ice or very, very hot. But Japan has very distinct seasons. And, I think that it really has still stuck with me. Um, I mean, Japan is beautiful in fall. It truly is. Like some countries are just so beautiful. Um, and that imagery sticks with you, and so, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm excited to, like, put that in the books."
Yeah, I want to talk to you about your time in South Korea and Japan in a little bit, but we'll finish up here. So is it for sure 4 books that are going to finish off the series?
Yes, for sure, 4 books.
You're not going to come up with a new idea in the shower and be committed to that for the next 8 books in year 2 or
No, like, I've already got other ideas for other novels in my head, like, I'm ready to move on, like, I'm writing the 3rd book right now, like, currently I'm on the 2nd draft, but, in the back of my head, I have other ideas, so I'm ready.
Do you ever find that since you talk about these other ideas, you ever find that sometimes those ideas just won't be silenced and they kind of push their way to the foreground?
I'm a very serious taskmaster. Um, I I do like things finished. I think it bothers me more to leave something unfinished than a project that hasn't been touched yet. That's just me, and that's just me personally. I'm like, no, I can't get to you until I finish this, so leave me alone.
That's great dedication. You're lucky you have that. I know that I try to stay on task, but every now and then I will come up with a new idea, and as much as I want to push it down, it'll just like, nope, I'm gonna make myself heard now. And the series I'm working on now, I'm trying to milk it for everything it's worth because at some point I'm gonna get not sick of it, but I'll have said a decent amount, and I won't be able to return to that for a while without doing something else. So I'm trying to just do everything I can in whatever time I have.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Um, and I think one of the reasons why I kind of push myself to finish things is because I know I don't have a loose interest or have a short attention span, but like I do, I get ready for the next thing. So, like, okay, I got to finish this, so I'll be ready for when that next idea comes.
Now, I've read the audiobook for Sister Samurai, and which just came out fairly recently. I'm always curious how other authors approach their sort of audiobook production because not many authors manage to get audiobooks out there. It's quite expensive. It's a very time-consuming process. Was the audiobook always something you wanted to do, and how did the process work out for you?
Not at all. I I am honestly not an audiobook listener. Like I'm one of those people who listen to an audiobook and my brain goes 100%. I'm thinking about stories. I'm thinking about like it's very difficult for me to focus on what's going on in an audiobook. So it's never been my format of choice. But, I have done a lot of in-person events. I have had a lot of people come tell me like, "Hey, is there an audiobook? Is there an audiobook? Is there an audiobook?" It's been a continuous question. And Sister Samurai's been out since 2024. So it's been about 2 years. And I was like, "Okay, I want to give you guys an audiobook, but an audiobook is really expensive. And also if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Like I'm still going to put 100 in it. If you've heard the audiobook, like there's sound effects, there's music, I'm just like, like, because I'm a perfectionist at the end of the day, like I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna go all in. Um, and also there's definitely different ways of producing an audiobook. You can do like a royalty share with ACX, or you can pay for all of it upfront. And I chose to pay for it all of it upfront because as an indie author, like control and rights is very important to me. Um, and I wanted complete ownership of it. So that means I had to wait until I had the money so I could pay for this upfront. Because I knew nothing about audiobooks, I don't even listen to audiobooks. I wanted to um, have kind of go through a production company, someone that could help me. because I knew nothing. Like he was explaining like words and definitions, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I have no idea what these things are. But so I ended up going with AB Book Services. They are a production company, and particularly them because they also have um a large number of um people of color narrators and Black narrators. So I'm definitely, need a good narrator for Sister Samurai, because she has such a strong voice. And I was like, I gotta find the right person for her. So that also took a while too, because I needed the right person for Sister Samurai, or I didn't feel as if it worked. So, it's that making sure I got the money and making sure I found the right people to help me, making sure I found the right voice. That's a lot, and it took 2 years. But it's finally here now.
Yeah, as I did the whole same process that you did. I didn't go through a production company, but having to learn all the ins and outs of audiobook, just like what your levels of sound mastery need to be at is like I see these numbers written down and I'm like, I have no idea what this is supposed to be. And it's a whole learning process. I can
Yeah,
imagine for you who doesn't even listen to audiobooks, I at least I'm a bit of an audiobook fan. That must have been a completely different learning experience for you.
it certainly was. I had to go to people like, can you please listen to this and let me know, is it good? So I mean, I hope you enjoyed the audiobook because I have no no idea. Um, but I tried my best, and I got help. I one thing that I did is like I still have some beta readers, and I reached out to them and I was like, "Oh, do you guys listen to audiobooks?" And if they said yes, I actually sent them some of the clippings of the narrators and was like, "So what do you think is, like the best fit for Samurai and some of the best fits?" So some of the things that I had questions about, I went and asked.
Yeah, and the audiobook is just great. I think the narrator you chose, I'm gonna get her name wrong. Is it Ore Nash?
Yes, Ori Nash, yes.
Ore Nash. She's the perfect voice for it. I agree that if you had the wrong narrator, it would probably sound a little bit fish out of water.
Yeah.
And the sound effects, like normally I don't like sound effects in an audiobook, but these are not overdone. They're not drowning out the narration.
Yeah, I
Um,
did that intentionally, so yeah.
yeah, it could easily it could get quite annoying if it was way overdone. So, I mean, you sound like you're a perfectionist, and you've certainly perfected this.
Oh, thank you. That makes my perfectionist happy.
How has your general response been, whether from the audiobook or just from readers in general? You mentioned off mic you're going to do a few sort of out of state live events. When you're tabling at an event like this, what's the general response from readers?
Um, you know, I get surprised, because this was a novella that was a personal project. I'm gonna challenge myself and do something different and throw it out there, and it has become my best-selling book. Um, and and I understand why, and I understand it better, like doing these in-person events, and you just see people stop and just look at the cover, and they're just like, huh. There's something, I think there's a lot of right elements that I got right with the cover and then the title and then also the homages, because there's a lot of people who like will walk across the table and be like, wait, is that Afro Samurai? Like they understand the references. They're like, oh, Champloo. Oh, like Samurai like they understand the references. So it definitely like brings my millennial audience to me. And I think in person it's well received. And I'm always like pleasantly surprised. I'm like, yes, thank you, because it is such a unique idea. But I think a lot of the time some people are looking for something different, like something they haven't read before. And they're like, huh, okay, I'll try it.
I think also the length of it might add to that as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
I've said this before, but I noticed that when I do live events, sometimes you get people who maybe are not big readers, or
yeah.
they used to be readers, but they've got a family now, they don't have time, and they pick up one of my shorter books and like, I can try that, I can finish that pretty quickly.
Yes,
and
yeah.
they're willing to take more of a chance on
Yeah.
something that is shorter because of
The
the length of it.
yeah, the novella length definitely makes it less daunting.
And you're talking about a few out-of-state events that you're going to be doing in the summer. I've never managed to travel out of province here to do any events just because of the cost and trying to figure out, do I drive? Do I fly? If I fly, how much weight is the books? Do I bring signage? Is it just a bare table with a few books on it? Have you done out-of-state events before? And sort of what's your process for balancing all the costs and what you're going to bring, what you're going to set up, etc.?
Yeah, so my first Odyssey event was last year, and so, like, I added another event this year. I'm definitely a person who kinda believes in growth. Like, I never recommend people to go full 100. And like, the larger risk you take, y y it just opens the risk, right? And, just to be open, like, I started small. Like, I didn't get here immediately, I started small. Um, when I first published, I was out the country, I was traveling. And so I wasn't here, at least in America, in my home base, for a whole year. So when I finally did my first in-person signing, I had 3 books out by then. Um, and, books are expensive even at, like, the author copy level. And like, so I did, like, some smaller events around, my city, going to libraries. A lot of library events have very low table cost or, no table cost at all. And so, like, every profit I made from each event, I put that back into more stock. I put it back into more stock. And then, I started my website online, and again, that went more back into more stock. So it took me a lot to, like, build up to these, like, bigger events where, like, I am bringing, like, 100, 200 books and selling them. Um to these bigger events. And I actually got really lucky last year. I got a scholarship to do Gen Con last year. And that was an excellent, excellent learning experience because it taught me, okay, what were the numbers to make this work? How many books I would need to sell to make a profit? Like, I think a lot of, like, authors, and a lot of authors have different goals, right? Like, there's some are hobbyist authors, some, like, or want to do this as full-time career, and that's where I'm at. So I do see this as a business, and it is important to know how many books you need to sell to make break even or to make a profit, like, to do those numbers. Um, and so that experience was very, very, very helpful. It let me know what my average was, like, how many books I'll typically sell in a full day, right? And because I've had that experience now, I'm like, okay, like, I'm willing to, like, build up. I know what I'm capable of. I know, like, how many books I'm able to sell, and it's possible for me to sell. And, that's not true of every author. Like, I always recommend that go do some in-person, like, small local in-person events first because different books sell differently. Different books sell differently to different audiences. So for example, um, there are some events that are very romanticy heavy, very romance heavy. And I have these 2 very different series. This is Samurai's all action. There's no romance in it, but there is a romantic subplot in my first duology. So that duology does better at those events. So sometimes being aware of the audience that's at the events makes a big difference on which book you're going to sell, like how things are going to go. So, I really suggest getting your feet wet, starting small, figuring out, like, how things work for you, and then grow.
And do you find that you're a sort of a naturally outgoing person at these events? Like I'm a bit of an introvert and I always have to kind of put on my game face a little bit to psych myself up for it. Is that a challenge of yours or do you kind of naturally fall into this is my book, this is what it's about and easy interaction with people?
Um, like, I'm definitely an introvert, like, after events, I'm, like, in my cave for a week. But I'm definitely someone that I don't wanna say that can turn it on, but I'm very passionate about books. I love talking about books. So even if someone comes to the table, I'll just ask them, "Hey, what book are you reading? Like, what are you reading right now? I'm just curious." Um, and that often like sparks conversation. In regards to my pitch, I had to practice that, and I can do it very well now, like down to like quick down. But that's experience as well. But I personally enjoy in-person events. I personally enjoy, like selling things online. Like there's just something missing. Like it's harder to connect with people, right? Like you connect with people easier in person, I think. And I think I also am a better person to engage with sometimes, like, in person. Because I'm very, like, animated, like, I talk with my hands, like, I get excited. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've read that book too." Like, "What, you love anime? Me too." So, I get very happy, yeah.
First, there was Attila, who savaged Rome and committed genocide from Asia Minor to Gaul. He was a Mongol who wandered in from the Far East and took up the sword for gold, girls, and glory. Then came Genghis, the founder of the nation, who surged outwards from the steppe and wreaked annihilation across 2 continents. He was a Mongol who made graveyards of China and the Middle East and left his seed in half the women of Eurasia. Then came Tamerlane, who swirled out of Samarkand like a whirlwind, leaving towers of human skulls and a tidal wave of blood enough to drown an army and their horses. He was a Mongol who butchered from India to the shores of Europe and terrified the Middle East for half a millennium with his curse. Then came Harajan, who, on the crest of a global energy crisis and economic collapse, raised his scimitar like a standard and charged his horses outwards from Mongolia to usher in the new world epoch. This is the premise of my 1,300-page post-apocalyptic epic, The Hounds of Harajan. Do you like epic world building? Do you like dozens of POV characters whose journeys intersect after a long build-up? Do you like dark post-apocalyptic with hints of soft magic fantasy? Do you like court intrigue and feuding royal houses? The Hounds of Harajan is 140 chapters of sword fights, naval battles, desert banditry, scheming concubines, and a dire shamanic prophecy that threatens the entire world order. The paperback is available in 2 volumes, and the ebook has 1 giant omnibus, with the audiobook coming soon. Note, coming soon refers to some time prior to the heat death of the universe. The first 2.5 hours of the audiobook is previewed on episode 27 of this podcast. See JasonShannon.com/The Hounds of Harajan for details. We kind of teased this a little bit, but you traveled abroad to Japan and you taught English as a second language in South Korea, correct?
Yeah.
I really want to pick your brain about that because I have been to both of those countries and I'm just curious what your experience there was. I actually tried to learn Korean for a number of years and didn't get very far with it, but I just got really into the culture and kind of traveled mostly around that country. So maybe start with Japan. Have you always been interested in Japan? When did you go? What made you want to take the plunge? And maybe tell us an interesting story about something that happened there.
Ooh. It's funny, like, as we, like, talk about traveling and then come from in-person transitioning from in-person events, I actually think that those skills have helped me as an author at in-person events. Because when you're traveling and you're in a country, sometimes it's survival to make friends. Like, you gotta and it's harder to do as an adult because you feel like as an adult, you're out of practice on these things, but, like, when you go to another country, you gotta make friends to survive, like, find the expat community, join interests, like, find other people that, build a community, right? So that kind of immediate of connecting with people, that skill, I think I've kinda have brought to what I do now, um But I learned that there. Like I learned that traveling. I definitely was kind of always interested in Japan. Like, I grew up loving anime. I studied Japanese in college, and my degree was in international studies and East Asian studies. So that was my area of expertise. Um, and I just and then going to it made me definitely like love it more. And I don't think every country has its pros and cons. Not every country is perfect. But and you definitely find like which one fits you better, like as a person, right? Um, in Japan and Korea, there's so many similarities, but there's so many differences too. Like very stark contrast between the two. It's very fascinating. But when I went to Japan, I was primarily based in Tokyo. I went to Joshi Daigaku and studied there. And it was I don't look that old, but it was a long time ago. Um, but like some of my favorite stories is just traveling around, like going to Nara, like seeing all the deer like walking around, because that's not something you see. You see horses here. You don't see deer here. Like just like those very cute interactions, and then just interactions with people um were just I feel everyone should travel, right? Like that perspective is so important. Um, you know, going to someone else's country, being respectful, understanding the culture, being respectful of the culture, like a country where you aren't centered, um, and kind of learning how to navigate that. And it's funny because for me, I would consider Japanese was far more harder for me to learn than Korean. Um, because Japanese has kanji, um, it's harder to read. And I think I'm a person that learns better like picking up reading. Like that's how I learned as a kid, picking up books and reading, learn language as a kid. And so by the time I got to Korea, the alphabet's much easier to learn. Like you kind of pick it up really quickly. And so I was like reading things all the time. And then I was like, oh, I'm picking up Korean much faster than I did Japan. And I had to sit back and be like, why? And I realized that, people's learning styles are very different. Um, and me, visual learner, a reader, picking up Korean a lot faster than I picking up Japanese. Now, to be fair, Korean and Japanese as languages are closer related than Japanese and English is. So it does help to have some knowledge of the two because there are similarities. Kind of like how like Italian and French and Spanish, right? Like there's similarities between those Romance languages. Um, but I really enjoyed my time in both. I taught English in Korea. I was in Ulsan, which is about 40 minutes away from Busan, just down south. Um, and that was a really great learning experience. That's where I really got to experience the cherry blossom and the cherry blossom season. It was really funny because I got my black belt in Taekwondo when I was in Korea. And like we kept asking like our instructor, like, where are the cherry blossoms? Where are they? He's just like, go outside. And quite frankly, they're outside. They are everywhere. You don't actually have to go somewhere for them. They're everywhere. Um, So like those small things, like you just really, really enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, Busan is probably the one part of South Korea I didn't make it to. I kind of did like
What?
the other. Yeah,
Oh,
no, I was there for 2 weeks. I spent a week in Seoul, and then the rest of the second week I was in Sokcho, which is east coast, kind of near the north, and then kind of circled around and went down to Mokpo, the southwestern corner. So I kind of covered everything except for Busan. But yeah, I agree. The Hangul alphabet is so simple. You can learn it in an hour,
yep.
and a day or two of just kind of practicing and testing yourself, you can kind of perfect it. I've never studied Japanese. I'm told it's a very, very difficult language, partly because of the reading. And I did try to learn Mandarin Chinese before I got into Korean. It's kind of the same thing there, where there's just like thousands of characters and they have tones, and I have
And tones.
yeah. So I got further in Korean than I did in Mandarin.
Yeah, I'm tone deaf, so you can imagine how you can imagine how hard a Mandarin is for me.
Yeah. What's your favorite Japanese food?
Ooh. Hmm. I'm gonna say this because I haven't had very good in a while. I really enjoyed okonomiyaki when I was there, but I don't know if like if the ingredients that are available here in America, it doesn't feel the same. Like I don't think it's that Japanese mayo. Like something's not right. I still have not had like that Japanese okonomiyaki in years, and I still think about it. I'm like, I cannot find a good version here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the same for many countries where the authentic version that you get only in country is just not replicable elsewhere. I know wasabi, Japanese like true Japanese wasabi like spoils very quickly, and it's mostly just horseradish with food coloring here. So it's completely different. And the same thing with Thai food. Like Thai street food is amazing, but I can't eat the Canadian stuff anymore because it's not the same thing. It's just
Yes,
like
yeah.
sugar and seasoning and like
Yeah, it's those foods that I can't get here. Those are the ones I miss. Like those are the ones I crave. And I was just like, ah.
and how long were you in Korea for?
I was in Korea for a year.
Oh wow. So yeah, you do you consider yourself like fluent in the language?
Um, by the time I left, I could have conversations, but like, where's the bathroom? I'm hungry. Thank you for this. I like to order this. So very like survival conversationalist. But I definitely would like to, you know, increase my fluency one of these days and get back to studying.
So is one of your ideas in the back of your head for future works, is that going to be sort of Korean based as much as Sister Samurai is Japanese based?
I actually have something more kung fu idea actually than and and I think that's just like the media traditions, right? Like there's a lot to be inspired in regards to like storytelling from China. And K-dramas are really big in Korea right now. Like K-pop is really big in Korea, but I'm not really interested in that. I'm not a romance person. I'm sorry, guys.
All right, Tatiana, where can people find you?
Okay, you can find me online at my website, www.tatianaobey.com, or on social media at Obey the Author. As we have stated before, I have a couple events coming up this summer at the Ohio Columbus Book Festival and Ohio Ohio Columbus, and then Gen Con in Indianapolis, Indiana. And hopefully by the fall, I will have Sister Samurai, the third book, the Sacred Order of Brother Monks, out by the fall.
All right, Tatiana OB, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Sky pirates crash a drug kingpin's arranged wedding. This is the premise of my forthcoming novel, Taming the Laser Leopard, a gritty dieselpunk tale in the Golden Triangle. The drug kingpin in question is Olive Yang, future mafia don of the entire area, and forerunner to other, more well-known names. Here, in 1947, they're only 20 years old, and are forced into a political marriage for family and dynastic reasons. But Olive might be trans, or genderqueer, and definitely has no interest in men. They've snuck their girlfriend into their own reception, have eyes for the lovely countess with the low neckline, and have the goal of getting absolutely drunk and shooting craps all night long while avoiding the groom. The hero of this novel is the smuggler and sometimes pirate Tech Mescal, who, after an unfortunate incident with some communists, finds herself flat broke and in need of some fast cash. When she finds out that her old friend Olive just got married, what better venue is there to set up an opium deal? Taming the Laser Leopard is coming out later this year. It is, for those who have been paying attention, a prequel to my 2025 novel, Tiger Blues, which intros Olive on a daring quest in the Tibetan peaks. But this can be read as a complete standalone. Everything within this Yang Yoshiko series is being written in such a way that you can start absolutely anywhere and know where you're going. For those who have a keen eye and are paying attention, Tech shows up briefly as a disembodied voice in Tiger Blues, and the incident, the wedding crashing, is referenced there in Olive's narration. Other characters too, like Gregory Peck, the militiaman, not the actor, and Fat Huang show up in this one as well. For a preview of the novella, go back to episode 45 of this podcast. But be forewarned, that was a very early draft, and it has been beefed up significantly since then. For more details, subscribe or join my mailing list. Thanks to Tatiana for coming on the podcast. The links to her socials, her website, as well as the event she's attending are in the show notes. We've got a busy summer coming up. I've got Joe Mahoney coming on to discuss recording your own audiobook. He actually gave me the advice that set me on the course to doing my own audio. I've got R.W. Duder coming back on to discuss his newest release, which he says is a step above everything he's done before, and I'm inclined to agree. And we are nearing our 100th episode. But next week, I am talking to Andrew Levecki about his Celtic-inspired historical fantasy novella, Son of the Thunder Goddess. This weekend, I will be at SaultCon all weekend long. That's in Sault Ste. Marie. If you're in the area, stop by, say hi, ask for listener discounts or freebies. I'll be at the FlamboroughBook Fair at the West Avenue Cider House near Hamilton, Ontario on July 26th. I'll be going even further afield than Sault Ste. Marie later in the summer at the BlueberryBlast Festival in Nipigon on August 14th weekend. I'll be at the Cogsand Clockwork Steampunk Festival in Fergus, Ontario on September 12th, and there will be more coming soon. To stay up to date on all my events, including times and addresses, you can visit my events page at www.jasonmshannon.com/events. Taming the Laser Leopard will be coming soon later this year. All right, cheers, everyone.